and then we'll be welcomed in by Mike Rooney of D1 Baseball. Mike, appreciate your time this morning. I know a lot of Arkansas fans really liked hearing that you were coming on because you were the lone guy on the D1 Baseball staff that picked the Razorbacks to be your national champion in 2021. And I know that Kendall's picked them before, and I know there's some other people out there in the college baseball circuit that think the Razorbacks have a good chance. But from your opinion and perspective, why do you think Arkansas has a good shot to win the national championship?
Yeah, good morning, guys. I mean, first of all, I just didn't want to pick Florida, right? Like, that just felt so, I was so tired of that. And they are very good, obviously. Like, they're going to have something to say about the national title. But I think the things I love about Arkansas's team, and it's things that I don't like, it's things that I actually love, is, they're so good up the middle. And it's offensively and defensively. I think, Robert Moore, or hashtag Bob Moore, as we like to tease him and call him, I think he's an All-American caliber player. Christian Franklin in center field, Casey Opitz. You think about Arkansas, and you had four position players that were first-team preseason All-SEC. I mean, that's kind of unheard of in a league with that kind of depth of talent. And then the pitching staff was concerning because, Colin Noland and Patrick Wicklander, not to run those kids down, but, they've struggled in the rotation. And in the fall, I just felt very concerned about what is the rotation going to look like for Arkansas. And I think where I got some clarity is, in the preseason, starting hearing, DVH talk about, hey, I'm not certain Nolan and Wicklander are in our rotation anymore. Maybe they've gotten beaten out. And I think the model for me right now is, if you go way back, 2013, Mississippi State's team played in the CWS finals with a very uncertain rotation and an elite bullpen. And I think that's who Arkansas will end up being. I think this bullpen is going to be suffocating. And if they can just find three kids that can give them 4 or 5 innings on the front end, they're going to be just fine.
Mike, you're a former coach. What is attractable about Dave Van Horn as the head coach of the University of Arkansas?
Yeah, I think his track record is off the charts. I mean, the guy is he's so established at Arkansas now, but even when he was first getting to Arkansas, he had won at every level, been a winning junior college coach, mid-major coach, Division II national title. What he did at Nebraska was just, it's one of the great program turnarounds that I think we've seen in college baseball in the last 40 years. And so, he's very bright, very intense, but it's not an intensity that, kind of makes the players play anxious. It's an intensity that just the program operates with, I think, a very appropriate sense of urgency. Coaches want to coach for him. He's a guy that lets his coaches coach. And I think, Arkansas has now become an absolute monster where players want to play there, coaches want to coach there. You think about the player at Deb Center, you think about the fan base. And I just think right now you all are a program in tremendous momentum. And again, I think DVH is going to win a national championship. It's just a matter of when.
Mike, we watched everything unfold. Arkansas goes 3-0. The SEC had a lot of success in Arlington. How much should we be pumping the brakes, though, about what this past weekend means for the season ahead?
Well, I guess my answer would be yes, you should be pumping the brakes, and no, you shouldn't. Because I would say this, no, you shouldn't be pumping the brakes because you have an awesome team. And you didn't even play great this weekend. Robert Moore and Christian Franklin combined for 4 hits. Caden Wallace, I think, is a future star player. He didn't have a good weekend. Goodhart didn't even play. And I think the one question mark was the pitching. And I tweeted this last night. The Arkansas pitchers, and I know Ole Miss and Mississippi State's pitchers were excellent too, but Arkansas's pitchers had a 14.33 K per 9 against 3 really talented top of the Big 12 teams. So I don't think you should pump the brakes because I think your team is really, really stinking good. But here's why I think you should pump the brakes. I think the SEC West is going to be, fairly nightmarish this year. I think there's going to be 6 regional teams that come out of there. And so, there are going to be some dark moments on this ride, I'm sure.
That leads me to my next question was about the SEC West. I'll change the question a little bit. What's going to be more difficult, not just getting to a regional, but hosting a super regional out of the SEC West? I don't know how deep the committee will go, but this looks like a real battle setting up with, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, Arkansas. Somebody's going to be left standing when the music stops and they pull the chairs out, and not going to be able to host in the super regional round and be a really good team out of the West.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair point. I think if you're, the SEC will have several advantages. You guys are playing as normal a schedule as anybody put out there. So I think that, that will be helpful. I could see a formula right now where there is not a top 8 seed out of the Pac-12. The ACC and the Big 12 kind of linger there. I would be really surprised if there's one on the Big 10. So that helps. I think the class of the SEC West is you all, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. So if you can be in the top 2 of those teams, I think certainly you'd be a top 8 seed. I like Arkansas or LSU's team, but I don't think they're quite in the class of the 3 teams I just mentioned. I think Alabama and Auburn are going to be regional teams. I am very concerned about A&M so far, but I think if you can be in the top 2 in the West, which that's easy to say, that's going to be hard to do. But I think certainly that feels like a top 8 seed.
Mike Rooney with us, D1 Baseball on the Morning Rush. Mike, we were kicking this around earlier. How does college baseball need to continue to grow and improve? It seems like at times it's kind of a regional sport. You mentioned a bunch of dominant SEC teams. How does this sport need to continue to grow across the country?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's, like a lot of things in life, there's not one answer. I think the things that are top of mind for me is I really like this idea out there called 32 hosts, where everything would be a 3-game series till Omaha. That way you have 32 schools that get to host the postseason and get their schools excited. I think the new model, which you guys are probably familiar with, which is slide the season back 4 weeks. That 4 weeks feels maybe a little extreme to me, but maybe we do 2 or 3 weeks. That's a proposal that's really important for the Big 12 and the Big 10, who deal with some colder weather. And, I just think right now, any of the things we want to pass in college baseball, more scholarships, pay the volunteer coach, the Big 12, which is shocking because it's such a good baseball league, but the Big 12 and the Big 10 immediately beat them down. They immediately kill those proposals. And so, I think the thing I like the most about the new model is it's just like giving a big Christmas present to the Big 10 and the Big 12. So maybe we can start to get them to embrace the sport. But I think in the meantime, we just keep doing what we're doing. I know for me, the stuff I do at ESPN, that, ESPN keeps getting more and more excited about college baseball. I love the enthusiasm and passion I see from our company. And so, that's exciting. I think if we continue to build in that realm and our postseason continues to grow in popularity, I think nothing but good things can happen.
And yeah, it helps when you have like you, Ben McDonald, Chris Burke, Kyle Peterson. I mean, you guys have a number of different coworkers that you work with that kind of re-energizes and keeps up the sport. And you brought up something interesting with just the Big 12 schools and the Big 10 kind of going through cold and stuff. I also wonder, Arkansas is one of like the 20-something schools, Mike, that is financially stable in both football, basketball, and baseball. How much of that aspect does it have to do with it? Would a lot of these schools, I don't know what their percentage is, not making money on baseball as we close you out here?
Yeah, I'd say, not making money is part of it for sure. But I think, ADs have a lot of things they spend money on that don't have return on investment. It's just, are they excited? And I think for the cold weather schools that typically don't make money in baseball, if we can reduce their travel costs a little bit in the beginning of the year, I think that's helpful. But, I think the cold weather ADs, baseball is a little bit of a road show for them. And, they don't get to really see their team play on their home campus. And that's why I'm so passionate about the 32 host idea. The more ADs will spend money, for things that don't always return money. But, they've got to be excited about it. They've got to be able to see it and smell it and hear it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why hosting a regional can be a game changer in that regard.
Mike Rooney, D1 Baseball and ESPN, kind enough to give us some time this morning. Mike, we really appreciate it, man. And hopefully for all the fans listening right now, your prediction about the Razorbacks being national champions comes true.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff for Mike. You can read his stuff on D1 Baseball. You can also watch him on ESPN. Does some good work for both of those networks.
And again, D1 rankings just out. Arkansas moved to number 2 in that poll that we talked about just before we had Mike on. So Ole Miss 1, Arkansas 2 right now in the latest rankings.